Hi, this is Gary with MACMOST.com. Let's take a look at using groups in Finder windows. MACMOST is brought to you thanks to a great group of more than 1,000 supporters. Go to MACMOST.com/Patreon. There you could read more about the Patreon campaign, join us, and get exclusive content and course discounts. So when looking at your files in the Finder, you can of course sort your files in a variety of different ways. By name, by size, by kind, etc. In addition to that, you could also group items together. So here in the Finder I'm looking at a folder called Projects. I've got a whole bunch of different files and folders in here. And if I go to View and then Sort By, this is where I can sort. And you can see I've got it sorted by name. Let's sort by, say, size. And you can see here now with the size column that it's sorted with the largest files at the top. I could also just use the column headings here like name. Click on it once and it sorts it by size. Click on it again and it reverses the sort. You can see the little arrow here indicating the direction. So for most people this is all you really need. You could just continue to sort by size, name, whatever, and you can find the files you want. However, there's another option. If you go to View, there's something called Use Groups. Now a few versions of macOS back this was called Arrange By. And you had the choice to sort by or arrange by, which was very confusing. And you had lots of people that were using arrange by when they just wanted to sort the list of files. So when Apple changed this from arrange by to use groups, it made it a lot clearer to a lot of people and there was less confusion. But the functionality is basically the same. You turned it on by selecting Use Groups here. And once you do, you notice that everything in the window is now grouped. So there's a bunch of folders here, there's applications, there's documents, images, and so on. As many groups as you have for the files in this folder. Now if you go back to the View menu, you'll notice that Sort By changed to Group By. So you're no longer sorting, you're grouping. And in this case it's set to kind. It's grouping by kind. But you could choose something else. Like for instance, let's choose Date Modified. And now you can see here I've got a group at the top that's previous 7 days, then January, then 2022, 2021, and so on. The groups will automatically form based on the date ranges that you have present in the folder. You could also go to Group By and choose something like Size. And now you can see here at the top I've got the largest files here from 10 to 100 megs. Then I've got a group from 1 to 10 megs, from 100K to 1 meg, and so on. And you have other options here as well. Like for instance application. When you do this you're going to get things grouped according to the application that will open by default. So here's something from Automator. Here's Keynote. Here's Word documents, music files, numbers. Always a big group for other including folders. Here's all my Pages documents. Here's all the preview documents and so on. So they're by application, which is going to be different than kind. When you do Group By Kind, then you'll have groups like all images will be together, all movies will be together, all documents will be together. Now one of the things that's confusing is the order in which the files appear inside the groups. So for instance in Documents here when grouped by kind, notice that it's alphabetical order. But it doesn't have to be. I could still use the column headings here and say Sort By Size. So now the groups remain intact. And with all the documents grouped here, they're now sorted by size. So you can see 6.3 megs at the top to 91 bytes at the bottom. So the sorting takes place inside the groups. Now you can also access this in the View menu by going to Group By, holding down the Option key, and you can see Sort Groups By. And this is just a way to access in the menu the same thing you can do here by clicking on the heading above the column. Now grouping works in the three main Finder views. Now I've been showing you List View, but let's go to Column View. Now you can see here the grouping that's by modified date holds for all the columns. So I've got all the groups here in this column and then I've selected the Projects folder and I've got the same groups here in the Projects folder. If I were to change to Group By, say, Kind, you could see here that I've got Kind here in this column and then also Kind here in the next column. That's pretty straightforward. What's interesting is if you switch to Icon View. So here I'm in the Projects folder and you could see I've got Group By set to Kind and I've got these rows now with folders as the first row, then applications, documents, and so on. if you look at the rows, they extend off to the right, and I could use my trackpad or the top of my mouse to scroll through all of the items here. So I can go down to images here and I can scroll through the images. It creates an interesting way to view your files with each group being exactly the same height. So it could be easier to find smaller groups like presentations here even if you have a ton of documents and images. Now note you don't always have to go to the View menu here to change the groupings. You can go here to this little icon in the toolbar, click on that, and you can choose the grouping there. If you set it to none either here or in the View menu, it basically turns grouping off. So I can go to View, Use Groups, and then when I go to View Group By, if I say None, it's the same thing as turning groups off. You can see it's off there. Once it's off, then selecting one of these in the toolbar, like Date Modified, will turn grouping on and set grouping to that type. Now often people get stuck in grouping here and will go down and try to use Group By and sort by something and not get satisfactory results. Remember, if you just want to see everything in a list and sort it by name or sort it by file size, turn groups off. Then go ahead and use Sort By and sort by whatever it is you want to sort all of the files and folders in that location all together. So if ever you have an arrangement of files in the Finder that doesn't seem to make sense, the first thing to check is the View menu and see if you have Use Groups turned on. If so, turn it off and then sort it by whatever you want to get things in an order that makes sense. So there are a couple interesting little notes about grouping. One is that if you go to the Applications folder, you've got all your applications, and if you look then under Use Groups and set Group By, you notice the list is different. So you can certainly say something like Date Last Opened and it will then group all of your applications by applications you opened today, yesterday, previous 7 days, and so on. But you could also go and group by application category, something that's not available in other regular folders. When you do that, you'll see everything has this category here. These categories come from things that the developer sets when they make their app. So it's the application developer that gets to say what category their app is in. You can't change it. And for the most part, these match up to the categories you'll find in the App Store. And note you can also use this when searching. So if you do a search like I've done here and you've got your search results, you can click here and choose a way to group all of the files together, or you can use View and turn on Use Groups, Group By in the search results here. So even if you don't use it for viewing your folders in a regular way, it can come in handy to group together things in search results. Another interesting thing about groups is this Group By Name. What's this for? Well, your guess is as good as mine. If you choose Group By Name, it's basically putting everything in one big group and then sorting it as you want, which can create confusing results. Remember, I had this sorted by Date Modified here, and it's still sorting the one group by Date Modified, which creates this nonsensical list here. I just said Group By Name, yet I'm not getting anything by name here. It's by Date Modified. Let's sort by name as usual. Now you can see that I'm using groups. I have it grouped by name, and then I'm using the sorting inside the groups by name, and I get an alphabetical list. That's great, but I'm not really sure what the purpose is. Notice here in List View, it looks like regular List View, except I can't actually dive down into the files. If I were to turn this off by turning off Use Groups or setting Group By to None, now I get basically the same list, except now I can actually use List View as it's intended by opening up folders like that. And note there is one other type of grouping you can use, and that's to group just the folders together separate from the files. To do that, what you want to do is turn off groups and then sort by name. It only works if groups are off and you sort by name. You can then go to Finder Settings, and under Advanced you can turn on Keep Folders on Top in Windows when sorting by name. Turn that on, and now you've always grouped your folders here at the top and your files below that. Even though they're sorted by name, the folders are sorted by name first, and then the rest of the files are sorted by name. I hope you found this useful. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, click the thumbs up button below to let me know. I publish new tutorials each weekday. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out.